Hey everybody, this is Dan. I'm here to do some artcamp paintovers. Before I start, I just wanted to let everybody know that basically for the past 2 weeks I've been extremely sick with a very bad and sudden case of tonsillitis. Thought it was strep and then I'd get over it in like a week. It wasn't strep. I was on some pretty heavy medication for a while. I couldn't speak. My throat was closed up. So I apologize for that. Basically, as a result of losing all that time, I'm going to be making up my instructor hours this week by doing a few hours of crits every day. I'm going to be doing that to catch up so I hit my quota because, I owe it to you guys to give you what I said I was going to give you. I want to do that, so I'll be doing more crits more often to make up that time. I'm really sorry that I wasn't around for that period of time, but I couldn't speak. And you guys know how I feel about written crits. Sometimes they're misunderstood. Sometimes people don't get out of them the same thing when they can't see it. So rather than just giving JPEGs on the forum with some written descriptions, I figured I'd wait and I'd make up the live stream hours so you could have them on YouTube again down the line. So I'm still kind of closed up in my throat. I can speak okay, but you might hear some coughing, some I'm going to be getting up to get something to drink a lot. But basically I'm going to start. I kind of announced this a little earlier today, so not that many people are in here. Maybe more people will come in later, I'm not entirely sure. But if people do show up, or if people are listening right now, feel free to ask questions as always. This might be a little on the quiet side compared to the live streams I usually do. But yeah, again, bear with me. Lots of good new work on the ArtCamp forum. I'm really glad to see more people posting in the crit thread. I can't wait to get to all of it. I selected a few here that I'm going to try and get to today. Again, I don't have a time limit for the crits. It's until I think it's at a place where I feel comfortable letting it go. So yeah, I'm going to work on these. By the end of the week, I should have a chance to get to everybody. So yeah, I'll put on the forum and in the hip chat when I'll be doing them as the days go forward. But again, I'll be doing these every day this week, so I'm going to get into it. This is character design for a guy called Igor by Jeremy Gordon. I'm just going to look real quick on the forum and see if there was a description of who this guy is supposed to be. I don't think there was, but I'm going to check. Trying to improve the design of my characters. I feel they're always too plain or not dynamic enough. Any help in that area about ways to think about elaborating things would really help. My goal is to do work for Wizards of the Coast, Paizo. Close above his head just in case. Okay, so right off the bat, the first thing I'm going to say, because you said you want to work for Wizards of the Coast or Paizo, is the anatomy is way too stylized. This feels like a very kind of like indie game sort of character, which is fine. I actually like the way that the anatomy works for this guy, but it's a little too playful, a little too storybook for those companies. So basically, I'm going to crit him as is, because completely changing the style means I'd have to go back to scratch, but what I'll do maybe is crit him the way he is, and then later on, at the end of it, I'll do a quick drawing of kind of anatomy that they would want to see for this character, because Wizards of the Coast and Paizo are both rooted in kind of a fantasy realism approach, so they want to see correct anatomy, correct proportion, that kind of stuff. So anyway, I'm going to get into it, and again, apologies if I'm quiet. My throat, you can probably hear it in my voice. I'm still coming off of this sickness, and I'm on some heavy medication, so just bear with me. So yeah. So right off the bat, you were worried that the character wasn't dynamic enough and that he felt just kind of there. I'm looking for awkward things to begin with that I can fix in the pose. The first one is his arm is just kind of awkwardly holding this sword. It's just sort of like he's got a thumb over it and his fingers are behind it and it's just sort of resting there. I don't really get that, so I'm going to go with kind of the sort of a tropey pose, but, tropes are there for a reason, and they recur a lot for a reason, so I'm going to pop the arm out and rest the hand on the actual top of the thing like he's supporting some weight there. This will at least add a little bit of a diagonal to an otherwise very, very up and down ordered pose. But yeah. Sorry, you're probably going to hear me coughing a lot too. Being sick sucks, especially when you're a freelancer. I'm sure anyone in here who's been doing freelance and gotten sick knows what I'm talking about, but you just start missing deadlines and sleeping too much, and your brain just shuts off, and you can't really like problem solve the way you normally do because of the medication, and it's just everything sucks. Everything sucks when you're sick and you're a freelancer. Being sick isn't fun anyway, even if you're not a freelancer. But when you're a freelancer and you literally have to, I'm a freelance illustrator, and you literally have to just think and be creative for a job, having a head cold of any kind is basically the worst thing ever. Because it's the one muscle you need, and it's not working. So he's got these like padded shoulder things in his sleeves. Very quickly go to the art camp forum. Cool. Make that elbow a little less pronounced so it matches the other arm a bit more. So the other thing about this character, aside from the, the puffy things in his sleeves that I just was talking about, and the tuft of hair on top of his head, he feels very, very dark, and he's on this gray background, so right off the bat, everything just feels kind of sapped. The colors are a little lifeless. the values aren't really popping. If you squint your eyes, you can't even really see the features of the face. It's all kind of very dark gray. Sorry. Damn throat. But yeah, I'm going to grab an overlay layer, set to white. This is one of the paintover tricks that makes things really easy, because it'll take the color you have underneath and it'll basically make a brighter version of it or a darker version of it if you've selected white or black and you wash over it. So it's good for just pulling forms out real quick and catching a bit more light in places you want to be lit up. So I'm gonna put some specularity in the eyes. So it looks like he's got regular eyes. It doesn't look like the eyeballs are supposed to be like dark gray. I think he just put them in shadow, but they'd still be catching some light, so. Just see what that does very quickly zoomed out. Let me zoom in a bit because the resolution's weird online. But yeah, just very quickly, it just makes it feel like more of a definitive light is falling on the face. It takes 2 seconds to do. It's, you know, it just helps make things pop. Gonna do the same thing and make some of the strands of hair a little more lit up as they curve in. And flesh out the cheekbones a bit more. I'm also going to light up the top part of the scarf. Looks like you've got a cast shadow from the nose going right here, which I'll keep for now. I might get rid of it if it looks weird zoomed out. I understand why you put it there, but it might actually be a bit of a distraction. I'm not totally sure yet. Sorry, I'm just grabbing a quick reference to fix something I'm seeing. I just want to make sure I do it right. Cool. So the scarf feels very, very bulbous. Feels very, I don't know, very like plastic and clay. It doesn't really look like cloth would fold. So I'm going to play with that a bit more. Get some forms in here that are pulled from some actual fabric reference that's curving in a similar way. Let's see if I can make it sit a bit better. going to show the back side of the scarf too. So it's actually wrapping around the head and not just kind of pasted in front of it. Yeah, I'm going to get rid of this cast shadow. It just feels weird interrupting that line. So again, bear with me. I'm my voice still isn't really back from being sick. I see some more people are in here now. Basically, I've been sick for 2 weeks with tonsillitis, so I'm doing some paintovers for art camp that I missed because I couldn't speak. So I'm going to be a little more quiet than usual doing these. I apologize. I apologize to anyone watching on demand or on YouTube. I know a lot of people message me saying they like to leave these on while they work because they can listen to stuff. I apologize that there's a little less content in this one because, yeah, vocal cords are just a little too strained. Yeah, Dorothy, I didn't mean to, obviously, I mean, this goes without saying, I didn't mean to get sick. It just kind of happened. I didn't think I'd get tonsillitis in July. That's kind of weird. But, yeah, I couldn't help it, so. I'm back. I'll be doing overtime this week to make up the last 2 weeks that I haven't been around, so you'll still get the same amount as you would have. It's just going to be a little more concentrated as a result. What did I mean about the character being too stylized for Paizo and Wizards? Do you mean not painted in a realistic way? Yeah, it's pretty much exactly what I meant. Paizo and Wizards of the Coast are kind of fantasy realism. That's sort of what their IPs are rooted in. Especially stuff like Magic the Gathering and Dungeons and Dragons, you know. There's some stylization there. I mean, definitely, you look at artists like Wayne Reynolds and stuff like that, but the proportions in human anatomy are still there, even though they're stylized. Things like these little stick legs and then a big bulbous body, and like, you know, that they don't go that stylized. Yes, there are some monsters and like half-human creatures and dwarves and what have you that have some pushed anatomy and stylized proportions, but they don't usually push it this far. This is a little more cartoony, feels more indie gamey, which is fine. But for those specific companies, they want to see an understanding of not necessarily human anatomy, because again, a lot of their artists, like Wayne and other people, do push the anatomy in a very extreme direction, but the proportions are still usually always there. So just keep that in mind. It's less of the painting that's wrong and more just the drawing. So that's all stuff you can address very early in the sketch phase if you want to work for those companies. God. If my throat starts getting really raw, I apologize. I really hate doing this. If my throat gets really raw, I might have to just put on music and stop talking and answer questions in the chat. I'm not there yet, but I feel like I might quickly be getting to that point. I haven't been doing a lot of talking in the past 2 weeks, so this is a bit of a workout for my throat. Yeah, overlay layers set to white and black are like, you know, they're just a really easy way to go in and make some corrections on the lighting in your piece if you need, you know, if you've got a big problem with the lighting and you need to fix some stuff quick. That's like one of the quickest ways to do it. Because it just takes the color that's underneath the layer and pushes it into a lighter or darker value. So if I go on my overlay layer right now and I grab some white, you know, on a pressure sensitivity brush, you know, very lightly, that's just a lighter gray, and then a medium gray, and then, you know, pretty significantly lighter. And then if I grab a black, you know, it's a darker gray, and then a darker gray, and then pretty much black. So it just takes what's underneath and it pushes it, you know, farther on the spectrum, whether it's dark or light. So yeah, it really helps for just very quickly going, oh, okay, shadows need to go here, this needs to go here, this needs to be blah, blah, blah. You know, it just really helps to sort of push the light in a quick way. yeah, I'll be doing shorter streams more often this week. That's basically what it comes down to. I'll probably do a couple hours every day and then a really long one on the weekend, and then I'll make up the. Basically, I've lost about 20 hours to being sick. I do 10 hours a week, usually, maybe a little more. Um, but for the past 2 weeks, I haven't been able to talk, so I'll be making up those 20 hours this week, and then we'll be back on track. I saw a few people on the thread posting that they wanted some help with stuff that's for D&D and Paizo and that kind of stuff this week. So that's good. I'm qualified to critique that stuff. I've done a lot of work for Paizo. I've done some outsource work for some offshoot D&D stuff for some clients. Um, yeah, it's that's something I can definitely help with. This is the first one. There's a couple other ones. I'll probably get to all of them by the end of the week, so I can definitely help there. Just gonna do some quick lighting, catching on parts of the sleeve, maybe the top of his hand. If I'm reading this correctly, there's a white shirt or a gray shirt and then a black shirt over it. So these are the ends of the sleeves, and this is the bottom hanging out down here. So I'm gonna treat it that way because that's what I think is happening. Oh, being sick sucks. Oh, it sucks. Now, one thing I don't get, I think this is supposed to be like a sash that's wrapped around his waist. So if it's a sash wrapped around his waist and it's tied, this doesn't look like it's, if this was very bulbous like this, sticking out like he was wearing basically like a girdle, I would understand the need for a cast shadow on it. But that's not the case, so I don't think having a cast shadow on it's really necessary. So I'm gonna pull this up to here and actually make it sort of, just tied around him a bit looser than it is right now, because that cast shadow was making it feel really like indented into his skin. It just was making it kind of weird. Yeah, I'll do there's one piece on the artcamp forum specifically. I'll pull it up real quick. I'm not going to get to it tonight because this is going to probably be the longest crit I do this week. This piece right here. Someone's doing the D&D art test. It's Jeremy Gordon, actually, same person I'm critting right now. But, yeah, so I have a lot of stuff that I can say about these. A ton of stuff. So I'll be doing a very long crit on these later this week once my throat's a little bit better, because there's a lot of stuff to say. I was looking at some Frazetta earlier. I'm going to bring that into this too, because nothing's more D&D than new takes on old Frazetta. But yeah, these pieces, yeah, I'll be talking about those quite a bit later in the week. So, and again, I try not to do the same people over and over and over again, but the way I run the paintovers basically is if I see something that I know I can really, really help with, more so than something else, that's probably what I'm going to pick because people will get the most out of it. I've done a couple environments on here, not too many. I'm going to try to do some more this week. But again, I'm very much a character guy. 95% of the work I get is character design. So I tend to gravitate towards that in the paintovers just because that's where most of my knowledge is, and I'm here to kind of share that with you guys. So I've got a lot to learn as far as environments go. I never get asked to do them because my portfolio doesn't have any in them. So yeah, I can still help with composition and stuff in environments though. But people like Noah and Sean are very, very good at environments. So I kind of leave that for them. It's cool that Jeremy, that hopefully I remember to do it if you're listening to this on YouTube. That Viking that you drew, the Viking dude for D&D. I have an antique bronze statue of Eric the Red. It's about 2 feet tall. On my desk, it's a very old patina bronze statue. It's on almost the exact same pose and wearing almost the exact same outfit. So I'm actually going to probably set that up and put some lights on it and take some reference photos for you, and then create your piece with those so you'll have access to them. That'll give you a really good idea of how to light it and how the shadows are going to fall. Because again, this statue I have is very, very similar to the thing you're doing, so it'll be a good reference to build off of. But yeah. That'll be a fun one. I mean, they're all fun, but that'll be a relevant one, I guess. It'll have a lot of... we're going to talk about design on that one. We're going to talk about referencing. We're going to talk about culture. We're going to talk about what D&D looks for in a portfolio. That's going to be a long one. Hopefully Sean will return to streaming again too. Yeah, Sean's been extraordinarily busy since his book came out. I'm not entirely sure what he's been doing with artcamp because I haven't talked to him since I got sick. I know he's been a little behind the 8 ball with all of these unexpected things he's had to do, so bear with him. He will figure it out. Sean's a good guy. God. Nothing like medication to make you incredibly sleepy at all the wrong times. So, I'm not sure how to interpret the end of this scarf, whether it ends in frills or if it's torn up. I'm going to say that it ends in frills, just because that's how most scarves end. Apologies if that is incorrect. That's how I'm going to paint it though, so just so you understand watching this back, that's what I'm interpreting it as. So I'm going to grab some local color here, kind of rough in an end of the scarf. It's a little tangenty with his, yeah, it's a little tangenty with his sash. I'm going to bring it down a bit to like here. And then I'm going to bring all the color down to cover that up. And I'm going to be doing a color pass on this at the end too, because everything's kind of in this weird gray neutral. You know, it's not red, it's magenta. It's not vibrant blue, it's kind of this like off-violet, desaturated blue. I'm going to do a color pass at the only color on this that I really, really like is the kind of weird color in the sash and the pants and everything. Everything else I think needs a little bit of a bump. Noel mentioned that he also got sick and now he seems to be busy at Comic-Con. Oh yeah, right. I didn't know he was doing Comic-Con. That is definitely time consuming. For some reason everybody, like I'm in Boston and everybody got the same thing that I got as far as being sick goes. It starts with a sore throat and a fever. Like it was a head cold and then mine turned into tonsillitis. I got weak from a cold and then I got tonsillitis as a result. But everybody else has been getting the head cold. It's been going around like crazy, so I hope Sean didn't get the same thing I got, because he doesn't live too far away from here. I felt bad. Felt really bad. The worst feeling in the world is falling behind on your art commitments, so not being able to do these streams for the past 2 weeks has really, really been bothering me, stressing me out. So, again, apologies. I'm going to make it up to you. Again, I'm just making this a little more cloth-like in terms of how it's falling. That's really all I'm doing right now. I mean, I know it's nothing to apologize for when you get sick, but at the same time, it's like, you know, art camp is sort of a month-to-month thing, and if I get sick for half of the month, you know, that's kind of a big deal. So, I am making it up, though, so don't worry. It's a-coming. When we get towards the end of Art Camp 2, I think like probably the last week of July, I've been playing with this idea. I'm going to run it by Noah and see if he's doing anything similar to it. I'm not sure yet. But I was thinking, because I've been doing these paintovers and everything, I was thinking the last week of Art Camp, what I'd like to do is make a thread where everybody can submit their portfolio with the work they've done for Art Camp and their personal work. All on one, make like a, you know, like a dummy blog and just submit the link on a thread, and then just do full portfolio reviews of strengths, weaknesses, where to go, how to get work based on where you are, kind of like an outgoing review. of everything you've done so far. I think that'll help a lot of people. Because, I'd say like still only like 15% of the people doing art camp are submitting for crits, and I understand why people don't. But I think in-depth portfolio review would probably be a good thing to have at some point. So I might spend a week doing that, just going on here live and recording while looking through pieces and stuff and saving it. But yeah. So I think the format would be you submit a link that has a portfolio attached to it, whether it's a blog or whatever, and then say what kind of jobs you think you want to get, and what kind of work you gravitate towards. So we have a basic idea of how to crit, and then go into it. Drawing from life's okay. I mean, you can still have a portfolio, so you can have a fine art portfolio, things you draw from life, and we can still critique it and say like, oh, okay, you're obviously very influenced by Pre-Raphaelites. Watch out for female anatomy, just as an example. We're noticing a recurring thing, and etc. But yeah. Igor's hair is bothering me a little bit. I'm gonna extend some of it here and there. Well, if you don't aim to become a fine artist and you still only draw from life, then you need to stop drawing from life as much and make some time for some illustrations. Or use your life drawings that you're doing from life and turn them into illustrations, which a lot of people do. A lot of people do that. You can start a drawing from life and very quickly turn it into an illustration. It's pretty much, Donato Giancola's entire career is, drawing a lot from life and then turning those life drawings into illustrations. Making up bits and bobs where they need to go to make the illustration complete, but it's still very much a model, in a costume, stuff like that. So it's a good way to start. In imaginative realism, James Gurney's book, there's a ton of art, a ton of pieces he's done that is, very, very much started from life. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's actually a very, very effective way to do an illustration. Hey, Agabe. If I said that correctly. I don't know if I did. Apologies if I didn't. So I'm just playing with this guy's hair right now. Give it a little more finish and personality. Yeah, I'm still sick. I kind of have to start doing paintovers this week, or I'm going to be like, I don't want to have to do 40 hours of paintovers in a week at the end of the month. That's going to just burn me out like crazy, so I decided I'm recovering, you know what I mean? So it's still good. It's okay. I'm going to post a picture in the chat for you, Dorothy, from a great book. I brought this up before. I did one of the first paintovers I did. I brought this book up. But this is an amazing book that I loved as a kid that I still have, called Gnomes. And basically this guy just does life drawings out in nature of, beautiful little samples of ground with grass and pine cones and ferns and animals. And then he just kind of draws gnomes interacting with that environment, and he made a whole book out of it. And it's a beautiful book, and That's just a bunch of life drawings and life paintings, but adding that one imaginative element, which could easily just be a life drawing of somebody you know in a costume interacting with that, life study, turns it into an illustration, and a very good illustration. It's a perfectly valid way to work, and a lot of illustrators do work that way. So if you really, really love drawing from life and you hate drawing from imagination, you can still be an illustrator. I'm going to put another link in the chat. Stuff like this. You can tell from this picture, I'll put it up on the screen for anyone watching on YouTube. You can tell from this picture that he just found this really awesome stump with all this lichen on it and moss and just this beautiful piece of nature that was kind of curved. And then he thought, oh, I can use this in an illustration. And he just, was talking about how strong gnomes are, and he put him there with his bent back, kind of curving it up. But this bird is from life, and this stump is from life, and this beautiful foliage and stuff, this is all from life. And he just adds this one little element of his little gnome universe, and suddenly it's a beautiful illustration. It's not just a life painting. It's telling a story about how gnomes lift things and how strong they are, and here he is in his environment. And yeah, it's a great book. It's just called Gnomes. If you've never seen it, I highly recommend getting it. I think it's still in print. And like Gurney, like Dinotopia, there's whole things in Dinotopia that, oh, who is the author, actually? His name is Rien Portville, or VA. He's a great illustrator. Here you go, I'll post this in the chat. There he is. He's done some other books too. They're all beautiful. They're kind of like documentary books about subjects. But, if you love drawing from life and you still want to be an illustrator, look at him, look at people like James Gurney. I mean, there's really no shortage of people that do that approach. It's just understanding it. Like, take a look at this illustration. This is the last one, and then I'm going to get back to the paintover. So, take a look at this illustration. It's a beautiful illustration. I'll pull it up on the screen. It's this illustration from Dinotopia, if anyone can remembers this. It's a guy in camouflage wearing leaves in a very swampy woods area with a dinosaur. And basically, this is him going out in nature and painting this scene in the woods. This is a life painting, life drawing from a really beautiful environment he either took a photo of or he sat out in nature and painted. Then it's a model of a dinosaur that he has, because, James Gurney has models of all the dinosaurs. So he set up a light on that to match the environment, and he drew that from life, and then he painted it from life. And then he had a friend of his, or himself, hit that pose, and he sketched that from life. And then he drew the costume on it with all the leaves. And then he just put those three things together. He said, okay, compositionally, the dinosaur should go here, the guy should go here, the environment sits this way. And then it's a beautiful finished illustration. But it's three life drawings that he did on three separate pieces of paper originally, just composited it the right way to tell a story. So you can use life drawing to become a very powerful illustrator. Don't think you have to do it from imagination. You can do your thumbnail from imagination and say, okay, I'm going to do a piece with a dinosaur. It's going to go approximately here, and it's going to tell this story compositionally. And then you can go get the references from life and put it together. You know what I mean? You don't have to do the entire thing from imagination if you don't want to. Plenty of people don't, so don't feel like that's something you have to do. try it. You know, try it this week. Try it next week. Say, do a thumbnail of something you'd like to do in an environment that you can reference firsthand, and then put an illustration together based on life drawing. You know, just try it out. See if it's comfortable. See if it's a good way to work that you enjoy. You know, even Norman Rockwell very famously sketched from life constantly and took photographs of things he saw that he thought would be good in illustrations, and drew tons of pictures of his friends making all kinds of expressions. And, you know, when he needed to do an illustration of, you know, for example, like a postman leaning over a counter laughing at a kid, he could go to the post office and actually take a photo or draw the post office from life, and then he could have his friend who made that face, and it's just putting the pieces together and then doing a final pass and making it a painting. It's kind of how all the masters in the Renaissance worked. It's definitely how the Brandywine illustrators worked with Howard Pyle. They dressed people up in costumes constantly and set up the illustration in real life, and then drew it from life as best they could to reference it in the paintings, you know. N.C. Wyeth did that all the time. When he had to paint cowboys in the Wild West, he went out to the West, and he actually looked at those environments, and he traveled around, and, you know. Being good at life drawing is just another tool you can use to give your illustrations that extra punch. That being said, of course, you should still draw from memory and from the top of your head, just to, like, exercise your brain. You don't have to do it for your finished pieces, though. You never want to be a slave to your references, but that doesn't mean you can't heavily reference. You know, don't... Obviously, I went on kind of a tirade about this a couple weeks ago on here, but, you know, you don't want to just go get 5 images off Google image search and cut them out and put them together and paint over it and call it an illustration. That's the wrong way to work. But if you're painting an illustration that takes place in the woods, and you walk out in the woods and you find a cool spot and you photograph it or you draw it or whatever, that's yours. You did that. That's your first-hand research. You own that. You can do whatever you want with it. That's a perfectly legitimate way to work. But if something's broken or doesn't work in the illustration, you know, you got to know when to fix those things. You can't just make a collage and paint over it and say, well, it's a photograph, so it's true. You still got to have that artistic eye for tangents and weirdness and compositional stuff. But yeah, that's all just the cliff note at the bottom of my statement. It's basically, this isn't always the case, but a general way to think about it is an illustration is successful when it not only tells the story that it's supposed to tell, is not only pleasing to the eye of the person looking at it, but also when you can't see the strings that were used to hold it together. Not seeing the strings is a very big deal because an illustration is basically an illusion. That's why it has the same prefix. You know what I mean? It's when you know that the person, when something looks very similar, you know what I mean? And you can tell, like, there's one wolf that everybody uses in their card art, always. It's the one with the huge open mouth screaming with the spiked up hair on its back with a ridiculously exaggerated face, and it's a really cool photograph of a wolf, yes, but hundreds of people have used it for their illustrations, and it's like, oh, that's the Google wolf. That's seeing the strings. That's when you go, oh, this is just a, whatever. This person just went on Google and traced that photo, whatever. That takes people out of the image. The magic trick is gone now. You've seen the mirror on the side of the stage. There's nothing impressive going on. You gotta watch out for stuff like that. That's basically all I'm saying. Yeah, Miles did a really cool one. That's not the only way to do it. I do like that he showed you that, lighting on a completely different person, taking lighting from an old lady. You can paint a very young lady. Like, that's a really good way to think about it. Yeah, it's a good article. I miss Miles. I used to talk to Miles all the time before he was a sexy man. Before we all got horribly, horribly busy. But now we're all horribly, horribly busy. Yep, Sam Carr, the first golden boy. I miss my British boys. Sorry, just making these legs a little more cylindrical with how the light's working. Your internet stops working when you connect to your tablet. Now that is an interesting problem. I don't think I've ever heard of that. That's got to be some kind of weird driver thing. That's really strange. So I was going to do a second part of this where I draw this guy with realistic anatomy to show how he could become a Paizo character or a D&D character. But after looking at your other post on artcamp, because this is the same artist, you clearly already know how to do that, so this was a stylistic choice, not a limitation choice. So I'm not going to bother doing that because you already understand it. But yeah, I just wanted to clarify that real quick. Voice is dying. A slow death. I'm going to try and get a little more red out of this scarf real quick. Just a little more richness makes a big difference. Yeah, this is the first piece I'm painting over today. And it might be the last, it just depends how long my throat lasts. So, for those of you who didn't hear earlier, I'll just recap real quick. I've had tonsillitis for about 2 weeks. I'm coming off of it now. My voice is back finally to the point where I can use it. That's why I haven't been on. I'm making up the hours this week. So I'm going to be doing more streams more often. They're going to be shorter, but by the end of the week I'll have 20 hours basically by next Sunday pretty much. So I'll be on here every day. I'll be announcing on the artcamp forum in the critique section when I go live. I'll put a thing up that says, okay, I'm going live. I'll also put it in the hip chat, the artcamp hip chat thing. But yeah, so I'll be on here every day. I'm not exactly sure on the hours yet. It depends on what my clients need me to do. I'll know more tomorrow, I'm assuming, when I get my feedback. But yeah, so I'll be doing a lot more streams than usual this week to make up for all the time I lost while I was asleep in a bed, popping pills and crying. So if you have something you'd like me to take a look at for artcamp, just post it in the crit thread. I'll probably get to it since I'm doing overtime this week. So yeah, take advantage of my desperation to make up the hours. There's a lot of stuff I'm going to be talking about though. I already took a look. I'll be doing this one either tonight or tomorrow. I'll be taking a look at this one. I'll be doing a very long one on some other stuff Jeremy Gordon put up. But yeah. Yeah, feel free to post whatever. And remember, if it's from life or if it's a study, I need to see your reference. Because I can't crit a study or a life drawing without knowing what it is you're looking at. But, yeah. If it's illustration stuff, all I need to know is what the purpose of the illustration is. It could be as simple as, I want to work for D&D, here's a knight. Or it could be as complex as, I'm writing a story, here's a paragraph. Whatever you think is the sufficient amount of information for me to not only see your piece, but understand your piece. That's what I need. Because the best crits come from understanding, and not just, this is what I would have done. It's, okay, what are you trying to do? Oh, okay, this is how you could more effectively do it. So yeah, the more information you give me, the more I can give you. Oh, God. I need to go get some water in a minute. Yeah, what Marjorie said in the chat. Please don't give me unfinished sketches to crit. I need to see what your limitations are. Get something as close to finished as you can. The only time I crit sketches is if you've done your tight lines and you're ready to go to paint, but you don't know if the composition is broken. I'll crit that. I'll crit composition sketches if they're just sketches, but if you just do like a quick rough of a character and you don't really push anything and you post it on artcamp and you're like, idea I had for a character, anatomy's wrong, blah blah blah. I don't know. Do you think it's cool? Like, I'm not gonna crit that because I need to see what you're capable of doing to give you good feedback. Oh, that was your piece, the Pirate Sailor one. Cool. Yeah, that was good. That was, if anyone in here is wondering, go to the artcamp crit section and look at what, the information. I'll scroll up real quick here. This is a good amount of information for a crit up here. So this is what the piece is, this is the process I used to do it, here's the story behind it, here's what I think the issues are. Perfect. It's exactly what I need. I'll tell you what, Dorothy, you're saying you mostly get stuck on the composition sketch phase and then don't get past it. If you do a comp sketch and you post it in the thing, I will crit it this week. And then you can take it to the next level, and then I'll crit it again. Then you can finish it. So, if you want to work together this week to get something done, I'm more than happy to do that. So, by all means, take advantage of that. Do a tight compositional sketch, and let's do it. yeah, by all means, do whatever you got to do to get your comp sketch done, and then put it up. We'll talk about the composition and how to improve it. Then you can do a second version of it, and then we can, yeah, you can take it to finish. I think that'll be a good exercise. So yeah, by all means, whenever you're ready to start, just post it on the crit thread. Give me the info, and we'll do it. Dan, I've got a question that I haven't heard you talking about in any of the videos that I've watched. Why do you do paintovers, and what do you love about it? Well, the reason I'm doing paintovers now is because I'm an instructor for art camp, and Noah was like, what do you want to do to instruct? And I said, oh, you know what, I'll do paintovers because I enjoy doing those. The reason I started doing paintovers back in the day when I was doing Crimson Daggers every day with Dave is because when I was in school, this is kind of a long explanation, so bear with me. It's a long explanation, but I think you'll understand what I'm getting at when I'm done. When I was in school, the only thing people did to try and help your work was everybody would hang their work up on the wall, and then they'd have a crit. And everybody in the room would just kind of say what they felt about the piece, and it usually wasn't anything actually constructive or factual. It was a lot of just airy, like, this piece feels like dramatic to me, or I like the tension and the color, or when I look at this piece I feel sad, and just like comments that don't actually mean anything. There was no one in an art school crit is ever like, oh, that leg's a little too long because anatomy, the head is supposed this many heads down and blah 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 blah, and like there was never any constructive crit where people would actually just look at it as an illustration and go, oh, what, compositionally this should line up on the thirds, this is creating a tangent. Nobody knew what composition was because schools don't teach it. Nobody knew what tangents were because schools don't teach it. So critique time in class just became a mess, basically, of just people's personal opinions. It's just nothing really helped anyone. So basically what I started doing very early on in my senior year with a couple friends was we started basically trying to teach ourselves composition. And how do you do that? That's such a huge thing to try and teach yourself. What we did was we took books of art or printouts of art from our favorite artists like James Jean, Justin Sweet, James Gurney, just our favorite people, Marco Derjovic. And we would put tracing paper over their paintings, and we would look for big shapes. And we didn't know what composition was, really, because there's not really a definitive book on it. There's a couple that kind of mention it, but... So we started looking at our favorite pieces and wondering why we liked them so much. So we put tracing paper over them with different color markers and started looking for, okay, where's the focal points? What shapes are they making? What's the layout of this piece? And then we started noticing, lots of patterns and lots of the work we liked and all these trends and stuff. And then we started copying those compositions into our own work and saying like, oh, in this piece, Justin Sweet did this really cool thing with how he placed all the characters on the hill. And he put Aslan at the top, and it made this really cool triangle. And it's kind of wide, but there's also this circle thing going on. And I'm going to try something similar in my next piece to make it a little more iconic. And we started just, identifying patterns and shapes and then pulling them into our own work in our free time. Our instructors had nothing to do with it. And then that evolved into, hey, I think I'm going to do this piece. Here's my sketch. Compositionally based on all the stuff we've been looking at, what do you think I could do to make it more effective? And that turned into like, oh, okay, we're going to start putting tracing paper over our own work and figuring out how to improve it. And then I got out of school, and then, me and Dave were doing daggers and stuff, and because of Photoshop, the easiest way to show someone how to fix something isn't talking about it, it's to just drag the file into Photoshop and just make it like you were the one painting it, and just say, this is what I would have done, and blah, 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 and explain it. And it was so much easier to do in Photoshop, because again, our school didn't allow us to use Photoshop. They said it wasn't a real medium. It wasn't something that illustrators used. It was a fad. It was, cheap, blah, blah, blah. wasn't real art, so we weren't able to use it. But once I was out of school and doing Daggers with Dave, we started doing that all the time with people's work. And then, you know, so many people were asking for it on the live streams we were doing, we decided to make our own live stream critters thing where that's all we did was paintovers and discussion. I went through a phase where I did paintovers every night. I do a cool down every night after my personal work and studying, where I do one paintover every night for like 6 months straight. I did it. But yeah, paintovers are really fun because it's kind of like figuring out a puzzle. It's looking at something and going, okay, if this was my problem that I was dealing with, how would I get out of this? And in a lot of the cases, through doing paintovers, you identify problems in your own work that you never noticed before until you saw it in somebody else's work, because we're blind to a lot of the mistakes we make ourselves a lot of the time. We just don't see it because we're too invested in our own work. We spend so much time doing it that we don't necessarily see all the flaws. We go kind of snowblind to them. So paintovers are a really great way of, like, you know, you'll be painting over and you'll go, oh, you know, your skin tone's a little blah, 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 blah. And, like, as you're explaining it, you're like, wait a minute, I'm being a huge hypocrite. I've done this. Like, no wonder I identified that problem. This is a big problem in my work. And then it's like, oh, so not only is it helping other people, it's helping you as well. It's giving you a bigger, you know, visual vocabulary. It's giving you a bigger list of ways to get out of various problems in your pieces. Yeah, I don't know. It's like, it's really beneficial for everyone involved. And I think it's a lot of fun too, because, you know, it helps everybody. It's like, oh, let's take something good that you love, and then I'll try to take it to the next level by doing something that I love. And, you know, we all love doing this, so it's just kind of like, it's kind of like a team sport in a weird way. It's like, hey, you know, I kicked the ball this far, and, you know, you take it to the next part, and then he'll take it to the next part. And it just kind of helps everyone. That's my long explanation of how I got into doing paintovers and why I think they're so much fun. I think they are the most helpful form of critique. I think just speaking a critique out loud, people can misunderstand you. You might not articulate certain points the right way. When it's just speech, things are very open to interpretation. People can hear things different ways. The inflection in your voice, accents, all that stuff affects how people hear what you're saying. But there's really only one way to see something when it's a before and after. If I click all these layers off like this, you see what it was, and then you see what it is. And you can identify all the things I've done, and there's really no room for interpretation. It's an A and a B. It's a before and an after. Nothing is lost in, like, opinion or how you hear it or what you want to think. It's just, it was this and now it's this. And I think that's why it's the most effective way of critiquing somebody. It makes it a lot more personal. It deals with the issues that that individual is having. It opens up a discussion. You know, because I could have critted this and just said, well, the anatomy's off, the colors are off, it's a little gray, work on the lighting on the face. Those are all accurate things to say, but they're so general that you don't know what I'm talking about. Work on the lighting on the face is like, what does that mean? So a side light, a bottom light, a colored light? Like, what about the lighting is bothering you? Like, yes, there was something wrong with it, but I'm not really helping you. And I see people crit that way all the time, where it's just these quick tropey sentences that are like, well, you know, the legs are off. That's not a crit. Tell me how the legs are off. Tell me how to improve the legs. Tell me how to make the legs correct. Tell me how the legs are going to work better. Tell me why you think I made that mistake with the legs. How to prevent that mistake in the future. Like, that is a crit. You know what I mean? Like, that helps people. And that's why I think paintovers are better than just kind of doing the lazy boy art school crit. Where I'm just not feeling it. Like, that's a crit you'd actually get in art school. I just don't feel this piece. Maybe do a new piece. You know, I guess this one didn't work. I'm not feeling it. Like, no, fuck that. That's not a crit. There's a way to fix everything. There's a way to fix absolutely everything. You can't just say, I'm not feeling it. But, yeah. So if anyone's curious, this isn't all of them. This is about 1/3 of them. I'm going to paste this here in the chat. This is about 1/3 of the paintovers I did back when I was doing my daily study stream. So you can kind of like see the development of how I started thinking about things differently. But yeah, all the befores and afters are here. It was a lot of fun. Some of them are really, really extreme. But, yeah. But anyway, yeah, I love paintovers. I think they're the way to go. They're the way to go if you want to help people get better, and if you want to get better yourself. So anyway, coming into art camp, when Noah was asking me what I might want to do as instruction, I thought paintovers and portfolio review would probably be the, it's different from what the other instructors are doing enough that it's kind of like its own thing. And it lets you, because, a lot of the art camp stuff is working on, fundamental skills and, visual language and the stuff you need to know how to do, like anatomy perspective, materials, how to work with certain kinds of mediums and stuff. I wanted what I was doing to focus more on individual stuff and like, where are you at specifically? How can you improve certain things you're having a problem with while you're learning all this other stuff? So that's kind of like my angle on the art camp thing is like, okay, you're learning all this stuff. You know all this other stuff. How are you using it? How can you use it more effectively? Let's take a look. Let's have a discussion. So, yeah. I'm going to be expanding it a bit towards the end of art camp too. I'm going to be doing some full portfolio reviews for everybody to talk about where you are, what you've learned, where you need to go, who you want to work for, stuff like that. I think that's going to be fun and beneficial. So, yeah, I'm trying to find as many ways to make this personal as possible because I think you learn more when it's. Because I could easily just do like a talk on color, but I think showing it to a person helps them more. So I try to do as many of these as possible. But because I'm talking and because I'm on here, that goes a little slower. That's just kind of a cost of the live stream thing. I have to read things in the chat and I have to talk about things. So, a paintover I could have done in like an hour may become like an hour and a half or a 2-hour thing as a result, but that's okay. I'm still doing, 10 hours a week. We're covering plenty of ground. And I like answering questions because live stream's a great format to do this because you can literally get exactly what you want out of it by asking questions. Yeah, there's nothing, not to harp on this too much, I don't want to get angry, but there's nothing more aggravating than an art school critique where all the students line up with the professors and just kind of put their hands on their chins and go, how does this make me feel? It's like, fuck that. Like, that's the wrong question to ask about illustration. Like, ugh. I do not miss that environment at all. There's nothing worse than needing feedback on a piece and someone saying, you know, the lion on that, you should change him. They don't tell you why you should change him. They don't tell you what about him needs changing. They don't tell him how you could change him differently to make him better. They don't tell you what they would do to make the change more effective. They don't even tell you the necessity of the change. They just say, I don't know if I like that, so, you know, fuck you. Just do it again. Hopefully I'll like it next time you do it. If I don't, you can do it a third time. It's just an environment where people don't want to have a discussion. They just want to have something to say. That's all it is they just want to say something that sounds meaningful, and who cares if it makes no fucking sense. They still said it. You know, everybody wants to sound like an artist. I hate it so much. It's okay. Someday far from now, I'll open an art school. And it'll actually be a good art school. Just kidding. I'm never going to do that. But I would like to, in a dream fantasy world, where I wouldn't have to deal with 50,000 million pieces of paperwork. The amount of work it would take to open a school is so dumb it makes no sense. His left or our left? Because the arms aren't the same length right now. The one on his left is a little longer. I gotta drop the other one down a little bit. Yes, this is a paintover. Coming off being sick is just the grossest thing. It's like trying to paddle a canoe through mud. The canoe being my life. It's just, ugh. My God. Yeah, this might be the only one that I do tonight. I might just do 2 or 3 hours a day every day. I think that's what's going to happen. Might do one in the morning and then let my voice recover and then do one at night tomorrow. I think that's the plan. I'm coming off of having tonsillitis X day. My throat still hasn't really finished opening up, so I got my voice back, but only in like a limited capacity. Coughing like crazy. This paintover? This paintover is almost done. Because it's kind of a stylized character and I don't want to get too far away from what they had in mind. But I've already changed quite a bit, so I'm just kind of taking what they had and trying to put some finishing touches on it, not reinvent the wheel. There's two kinds of paintovers. I've talked about this on here before. There's the kind where everything has to change, and there's the kind where you're just sort of putting the frosting on the cupcakes. This is the second one. And again, if this person didn't have other work on the forum that was anatomically accurate and realistic, I would assume they didn't know what they were doing, and I would maybe do a longer critique and try to fix the anatomy, but I've seen this person's other work, and I know that this was a stylistic choice, so I'm just kind of keeping in line with what they've chosen to do here for this kind of stylized approach, which means it's a shorter critique. I do want more playfulness in this hair, though. His hair is just kind of like not really doing anything in the original. Big old cast shadow from that hair. Let me tell you how excited I am for Guardians of the Galaxy, everybody. The amount of color and design in that movie, I think, is like unprecedented in recent memory. Like really, the amount of color and, you know, ship design, character design, environment design, costume design, it's like that movie, when you get to the end credits in that movie and you see the art team go by, that's gonna be like a 10-minute title crawl. It's just gonna be like a design powerhouse. Guardians of the Galaxy, it's coming out in 10 days. It's the new Marvel movie with Star-Lord and Rocket Raccoon and all those weird B characters that they decided to take a risk on. But it's got more art and design in it than probably all of the Phase 1 Marvel movies combined. I mean, really, when you think about it. There's more art in this one movie coming up than all of those other ones. Thor might be a close contender, but it's nowhere near as much as what's going into this. One thing, his eyes are on different levels. Gonna fix that real quick. It's one of those things you don't notice till you zoom in. And this eye is a little too far out. For all of these artists I'm doing paintovers for, could I talk about how to break into the industry? I've talked about that on here before. It's kind of like, I'm trying to think of a general way to do it. It's different for everyone because everyone wants to do different stuff. Like, certain people are suited for different jobs, so there's multiple ways to break into the industry depending on what you do. Things that work for some people won't work for other people because their artwork isn't suited for that approach. If you have a website with your art on it, Sven, I'd be happy to look at it right now and talk about how you could maybe break into the industry for what you want to do and where you're at. It's a very individual thing, you know. Some people are RPG artists very clearly that want to do characters and environments and stuff like that for fantasy worlds. Some people want to do hyper-realistic stuff that, you know, they gravitate more towards card art, movie art, that kind of thing. Some people want to do kids' book stuff. You know, it's just... my advice for one person doesn't necessarily work for the next person. It's there's lots of ways to break in. It's just they're varied. You do character art kind of like the one I'm creating right now. Well, for character art, leaning towards RPGs and video games, breaking into the industry is as easy as getting seen by the right person. That's really all it takes. So right off the bat, there's a few approaches you can do. You can take an existing IP like Magic the Gathering or something like that and do your version of their characters and try to really make them cool and different. And then, you know, once those are all done, get their art director to see it is basically the name of the game. You just want someone at the company to understand that you did it, make sure that they see it. You know, it's kind of like, it's the advice I always give on here about do the job before you get the job. You know, just do the job you're trying to get for free in your free time, and then let the company see it. That way, it's kind of like doing an art test without them handing you an art test. It's you taking your free time and saying, okay, I'm going to do the art test and prove I can handle this, and then send it to them. that gives them more of an incentive to hire you because they know you can handle it because you've already done the job before they've asked you to do it. That's a really, really easy way to get people to see your stuff and to understand that you're capable. Because even if you're a great artist, some people won't hire you if they don't know that you're capable. You know, some companies do want to know that you've worked for other companies. They want to know that you can meet a deadline. They want to know that you can finish something on time. You know, some of the best artists are notoriously slow, and they want to know that, you know, some of these companies like Paizo, D&D, stuff like that, they need stuff on like a 2-week deadline or a 1-week deadline. And they need to know that, you know, not only is the work good, but can you get it out? It's like the, you know, it's just it's a big part of it. Another avenue you can take if you're doing something like this and you want to work for films or games or anything really, it's similar but a little different, is to basically just do fan art and get the fan art popular on the internet and get it seen by the right people. It's basically the answer to all the questions is get it seen by the right people. It's different for different people that want to do different things. Like, you know, getting seen, the way you get seen is different for kids book artists as opposed to comic people, as opposed to movie people. But for everyone in every field, the way to get into the industry is to get seen by the right people. How you do that is different in each field, but that's what it is. So doing one piece isn't enough. You want to do a set. I'd say at least 5. Maybe you can do it with 3, but 3 is still not that impressive. 5 and up is impressive. You know what I mean? So the example I always go back to, because he's my life partner and lover, Dave Raposa. Basically, his Ninja Turtles is like my go-to example. He wasn't happy with the jobs he was getting. He wanted to break into films, games, stuff like that. So he took an IP that he knew was about to get rebooted by a major studio a couple years down the line. And he said, here's how you could take this thing and make it new and cool and more realistic. And, you know, I can do it. Here's proof of me doing it. I'm going to do 15 of them for free. No one's hiring me to do this. I'm just doing it as a proof of concept that I am the guy you should hire to do this if you want to do it. And he did all 15 of them, put them out there. And then he started, you know, he went from 2nd tier jobs to like 5th tier jobs, like overnight. The amount of traction that got online, the amount of people that reblogged it and shared it was in like the millions. And yeah, everybody saw it. And when everybody sees it and your name's on it, they know who to contact. So he went from doing like card art to like, okay, I'm working at a studio now on a movie. I'm working on this major game release. I'm working for this magazine doing covers. Like, that's basically what you want to do. You want to do something that's going to get a lot of traction online and a lot of attention. And you want to make sure that you're the guy that's getting credited for it. You want to make sure that you're the dude whose name is on it. So they go, oh, wow, look what he did with this idea and made it fresh again. Let's hire that guy. Because especially in today's market of video games and movies and stuff like that, the reboot is kind of the king of the hill. It's sort of, people make the most money off of taking something that people already are familiar with and rehashing it in a new way. So if you're an artist that can do that and you can prove to people that you can do that, you're going to get more jobs than other people, most likely, because there's more stuff being reinvented than there is new stuff coming out right now. So, you know, if you were to take something like something big right now, or something that hasn't been done yet, and do your version of it, that's basically the best way to guarantee that people are going to see your stuff and hire you, because what these studios are looking for is taking something that's been done a million times and making it new again. You know, D&D, the idea of D&D, the basic idea, is the most tired, overdone thing in the world. It's warriors going into dungeons and fighting dragons. That's been done so many times. It's the most overdone thing ever. Like, it's so overdone. But there's still artists who can take that and do something exciting visually with it that's never been done before. And if you can take a tired idea that should have no life left in it and make it exciting, that's what's going to get you hired. People are looking for that. Those are the artists they want on their teams. If you can say, like, oh yeah, but, you know, this isn't dead yet. I can make you more money off this thing that you should be throwing away. That's what companies want. They want to go, oh, we can get even more traction out of this thing because this guy knows how to make it cool. That's what you want to do. But yeah. So yeah, I mean, if you want to get your stuff seen for character design, There's no easier way to do it than to take popular characters and do new versions of them that only you could have done. Get them out there, get them seen, get them popular. Like, that's really the most effective way to do it. And there's really no excuse now for not getting it seen, because you can literally tweet the people that work at the companies the artwork and say, hey, I love the stuff you do. I did some fan art, hope you like it. You know what I mean? Like, with Twitter, there's zero excuse to not get your stuff seen by the right people. You can literally go to the editors of Marvel Comics and tweet them your versions of their characters and go, I love what you're doing. Here's some fan art. Like, if you're not doing that and you're complaining that you're not getting jobs, it's entirely your fault. Like, it's never been easier to meet these people. You can tweet directors. You can tweet, like, James Cameron and be like, oh, you know, I love Terminator 2. Here's a piece I did. You know what I mean? Like, it's never been easier to do that and get your name out there than right now. Don't buy into that stupid myth of getting discovered. It's your job to force yourself to get discovered. You know what I mean? Like, that's on you now. Don't wait for the romantic thing of, like, you know, there's never going to be a day where you wake up to someone knocking on your door and it's, you know, the entire creative directive team of Naughty Dog Studios, and they go, hey, what's up? We flew down to Oklahoma because we happened to find your website randomly on the internet and we really want to hire you. Like, don't wait for that. Just tweet it to them. Meet the people. Network with the people. Join a forum. Talk to the other artists. Like, force yourself into the industry. It's totally on you, and it's totally doable. Anyway, I hope that answered your question. My throat's pretty much gone now. Yeah. It doesn't have to be realistic depending on the company you want to work for. If you want to work for a movie company, like, for example, if you want to work for Marvel Studios, yeah, it has to be realistic because the movies they make have real actors wearing costumes and it needs to be real. But if you want to work for Disney Infinity that just put Marvel in their game, Disney Infinity is super stylized as a video game. Like, you can do crazy stuff with anatomy and all that stuff the second you go into that environment. So that's basically, I mean, it has to be realistic if you're going to a company that likes realism. If you want to work for Magic the Gathering, yes, their stuff is very rooted in realism. Even though it's stylized, it's still rooted in realism. If you want to work for a movie company, yes, because it's real actors, it has to look real. If you want to work for Nickelodeon doing cartoons, no, it doesn't have to be real. If you want to work for an action figure company, it doesn't necessarily have to be real. If you want to work for Nintendo, it doesn't have to be real. You know what I mean? So, yeah, it has to be real if the company does realistic stuff. That's basically the point. But, I mean, you know, there was a point when nobody thought you could stylize Zelda, and then the Wind Waker came out. Love it or hate it, it got tons of attention. So, I mean, you can take stuff that's realistic and do a new stylized twist on it and get tons of attention on the internet. You might even get hired for doing it, but if it's a company that's rooted in realism, you know what I mean? Like, I could do what if Call of Duty Ghost Ops was a Miyazaki movie and do like a super stylized anime version of my favorite parts of Call of Duty, and maybe it would get big on the internet, who the fuck knows. But then if that company hired me, I'd have to do realism, because they're never going to make an anime game. You know what I mean? Like, they go, oh, cool, great ideas, you know, and then to talk to them, maybe I'll get hired, but the second I get hired, I have to paint the way that their art direction is painted. The flip side of that is to take something super stylized and make it real, which a lot of people do. That's a very, very easy way to get big on the internet right now that a lot of people have been doing. That's basically what Dave did with the Turtles, was like, let's take these cartoon characters and make them 100% real. And yeah, that's another easy way to do it. But if you're not into realism, that's fine. Realism's kind of on the way out anyway. Things come in waves. You know, things have their time and then they go away and then they come back a couple years later. Realism has been around for like, well, it's been around forever basically, but realism in the entertainment art world has been like a fad now for like 7 to 10 years, pretty much. And it's starting to lose traction to style again. Then style's going to explode, and then that's going to go away, and realism's going to come back again. It's sort of like this ebb and flow. It's like how 5 years ago everybody was obsessed with post-apocalyptic art, and everybody had gas masks, and everybody's armor was made out of trash and stop signs and, you know, junked car parts. And then that went away. You know what I mean? Like, but everybody was doing it when it was big. But it'll come back. You know, post-apocalyptic stuff is going to come back. It's just still a little too tired right now. Should we put aside some of our ideas of what we want to paint to temporarily do fan art to get hired? I mean, if you want to, you should ideally be able to do both. You know what I mean? You should be able to strike a balance with, you know, the stuff you're doing to get jobs and the stuff you're doing to build your personal portfolio. Like, you've got time to do both of those. If you actually don't have time to do both of those and you're just desperate to get a job for whatever reason in your life, then yeah, I guess, you know, it's like anything else. You got to prioritize. You got to say, okay, having a job will allow me the free time to do the personal work that I want to do that I don't have time to do right now. So my priority is going to be get the job. Then after I get the job, I can focus on my personal work. So to get the job, I got to do X, Y, and Z. Like make this new fan art portfolio or whatever it's going to be. Like, yeah, that's a valid way to approach it. If you absolutely have to choose one or the other, then yes, just, you know, prioritize. Yeah, the apocalypse fad happened, then the new sci-fi fad happened, then the dark and gritty realism thing happened, and then dark and gritty realism turned into the Applebot fad, which has been the past 2 years. Everybody's doing that super flashy magic spell effect, you know, rendered fire, crazy clutter, ridiculous, you know, Korean art direction Applebot thing. And that's been like everybody's been doing that, but now that's going away too. Like, these things come in waves, and that's probably going to come back as well. I'm not saying it's good or bad, I'm just saying it was the thing, and now it's not the thing. It looks like drawing is becoming the thing again. Like, people are simplifying all over the board, making things like, you know, clean drawings with very basic colors and instant reads. Like, looks like that's starting to gain more traction. I'm not sure if it's going to be the next big thing everyone's doing, but yeah. Well, yeah, it's a Japanese game. I mean, by a Japanese company, boobs are going to be a big part of it. Obviously. Wretched. That's just, you know, it's just what happens. It's got a target demographic of males that are 13 to 25. And it's a Japanese game with a Japanese developer and a Japanese art direction staff. It's gonna have boobs. And, like, you know, metal thong armor and all that other good stuff. Like, you can be all white knight and angry and whatever. I mean, tons of people are. It's fine, but it doesn't. I mean, you can be. It's fine. I don't care. But you gotta understand that for these companies with a target audience of 13 to 25 male, especially in countries like Japan, where sex is such like a big taboo thing that is like an industry in and of itself. Like, that is going to sell. Whether or not you like it, whether or not you think it's sexist, whether or not you approve, it sells, and these are companies. And not all companies will do it, but some companies are always going to do it. So that's just the case. If anyone's interested in an interesting story that kind of has to do with this, I saw this on like the hell was it? I think it was on the Daily Show like a couple weeks ago. This is totally true. You can look it up. Japan recently outlawed videos that depict rape. Porn videos that depict rape are outlawed, but animated rape is still okay because the hentai lobby makes so much money in the Japanese economy that they can't tell them not to do it. It sells so much, and they have so much economic pull that the government can't tell them not to take, the government can't tell them not to do that. They get to make that call themselves. So, porn with real people depicting rape, not allowed in Japan anymore. It's illegal. Animated rape, totally fine. Because it's too successful as a business. So, just keep that in mind. Yes, it's horrible. Yes, it's wrong. Yes, we don't like it. But it sells. You know what I mean? Like, it's not going anywhere, unfortunately. So just kind of understand that. So, companies like Applebot or Blizzard or whoever else you want to name that have characters with exaggerated female anatomy that you might not agree with, it sells, and they're going to keep doing it. So, get as angry as you want. It's not going anywhere. Because it's a quick buck. And I know lots of people say, like, it's up to us as artists to say no. And if they want big boobs, I just won't do it. Well, guess what? If you're on a team at a company like Blizzard and the art director says her boobs need to be big and you say no, you're going to get fired. If it's personal work, yes, do whatever you want. Don't sexualize women, whatever. Do whatever you believe is correct in your personal work. If you work for a company and they tell you to do something and you don't do it, they're going to hire somebody who'll do it. Because it's a company. And they want the art to look the way they want the art to look. So, yes, have your principles, whatever. Just understand, realistically, going into the industry, it's not always your call. In fact, 90% of the time, if as an illustrator, working for other people, it's not your call. And you have to be okay with that. I'm going to read this the way I think you meant it. You ever been pushed into some moral gray zones in your professional work? No, I've been lucky enough to avoid that. I've had a lot of friends who've been pushed there. The most I've ever had to do is give a girl like triple G boobs and like a thong. That's like the most I've ever had to do is like the art direction keeps saying, make the boobs bigger, make them bigger, make them bigger, make them a little bigger, make them rounder, make them bigger. And I have to keep editing them till they say, okay, it's good, here's your paycheck. Like, I've had to do that, yes. I've had friends who've had to draw half kangaroo, half women porn. I've had friends who've had to draw, they've just gotten photos of a woman in an email that say, oh, this is my wife, trust me, I swear to God it's my wife. Can you draw her basically like, you know, naked in like a French maid S&M, whatever the fuck. And you have to just believe them that it's their wife and not a photo of some girl at the CVS they're stalking. You know what I mean? Like that's real. That's a job that tons of people get, is here's a photo of a girl. I swear to God it's my wife. Please paint her as a porn thing. I've known people that have just done porn. They've drawn porn because they needed money and somebody hired them to do it. Yeah, I mean, that stuff, it just kind of is everywhere if you go looking for it. I've never had to do it. The most I've ever had to do is make boobs big. So I've lucked out. I've lucked out. The only moral gray zone, I'm trying to think. The only moral gray zone I've ever been pushed into with freelance is a client telling me to use something that's copywritten. Basically, a client telling me to plagiarize, and me being like, well, that's plagiarism. And they're like, yeah, but we need it for our thing, and, you know, do it. I've been told to do that before. I think a lot of people have, honestly, especially with private clients who are like, I'm making my own Star Wars book and blah blah blah, and I'm going to publish it, and you know I need blah 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 blah, and like, sure, whatever. But I mean, I've had like companies tell me to do that before, where it's like, okay, this is the character for the game we're making, and he needs to look just like this painting by Mobius. He 100% needs to look just like this guy that Mobius designed. Changed 3 things here and there to, you know, make him a little different. And I'm like, well, guys, this is plagiarism. Like, this is 100% plagiarism. And, like, I don't show that work. I tell them specifically, you know, this is plagiarism. I don't want my name on it. I'll do it to get paid, but it's not going in my portfolio, and you're not going to put my name on it. I will do the art you're telling me to do for the money for your game purposes, but it's your copyright. You know what I mean? This is not, you know, I want nothing to do with it. And I make it very clear, and I usually save the conversations where I go, this, you know, this is illegal. And they go, yeah, we know. And I go, so basically I'm going to do a mock-up of something that is illegal, and I don't want my name on it. And, like, that's happened 2 or 3 times. And that stuff's never going to go in my portfolio. Ever. And it's never going to have my name on it. But, yeah. Luckily, I don't have to do that stuff anymore because I'm at a place in my freelance career where those are like super entry level jobs, usually. Working for companies that are kind of on like moral shady ground. Clients that don't really care. They just hire whatever artists need the paycheck. I haven't had to do anything even remotely like that in a very long time. So, and I mean, yes, to a degree, everything is recycled and blah blah blah, but if you feel uncomfortable with what you're painting because it's so similar to something you've seen, you're probably making a mistake. So watch out for that. Most people will have a client at some point in their career that asks them to do it. Just use your best judgment. Talk about shady jobs and not getting paid. Yeah, I mean, I've done, I think, 2 jobs where I didn't get paid before. I think everybody kind of does at some point early on in their career. But everybody listening should be aware that when you start working for companies, there's a few different. It's a few different reasons. You might not get paid when you think you're going to get paid, and there's a few reasons why. Um, some companies have a thing called net 90, which means that you get paid 90 days after the work is done and the invoice goes through. So that's 3 whole months. A lot of companies do that. Um, some companies pay on publication, which you got to watch out for because you might do a piece in 2014 and the book's not coming out till 2016, and you're not going to get that paycheck till it's publicized. So watch out for that. Some companies just will be late. There's a few companies that are really bad about that. I think a couple of them went out of business. I know White Wolf was really bad about that with a lot of people, but I think White Wolf Publishing went under. I think. I don't know if anyone can confirm, but I've been told that they went under or they got bought or something like that. Yeah, but anyway. Always ask for half of the money up front. That's just basically, that's like a way to weed out people that are going to screw you. Ask for half the money up front, call it a security. If they don't understand why, tell them that, you need to pay your bills and stuff while you're doing the job, or tell them that you have another client that you're working for, and to work for them they have to buy you out of that job, so you need a deposit. Just make up a reason why you need a deposit and tell them. And once they pay you, that means that they paid you. There's trust established, and you can do the job and not worry about them screwing you as much. Whether or not they give you the second half of the payment, there's ways to protect that. You can send them a watermarked final that they can't use, and then say, once you pay me, I'll send you the full res final. You can send them something super low resolution and say, once you pay me, I'll send you the final. There's all kinds of ways around that, so just be creative, get paid, make your money. I ask for half up front and half on delivery. That's my standard. If it's a $500 job, I get $250 up front, and then I send a watermarked final. And then once they approve the final, they send me the second half of the payment, and then I send them the final. It hasn't backfired on me yet, so that's pretty much what I recommend. Most people understand if you just explain to them, well, I don't know who you are, I've never met you. This is my livelihood, I need to establish trust, you gotta give me some money up front to do the work. Most people are reasonable enough to understand that. And if they're not reasonable enough to understand that, do you really want to work for them anyway? That's another question you gotta ask yourself. If they can't even understand something that basic about your human needs, do you really want that client? So I'm pretty much done with this. A couple tiny things I'm going to tweak real quick, but then I'm going to get off of here because my throat is insanely raw. I'm having a hard time talking. So I'm going to go get back to work on client stuff. I'm pretty pumped. By the end of the summer, I'm going to have like a whole new portfolio once my NDA is up. It's pretty cool. I've got Transformers 4 stuff that I'm going to get to show. I've got an entire army of miniatures that I got to design that's coming out. I've got like a ton of personal work that's coming. Secret project with some other artists I'm a part of that's going to be cool. It's going to be nice. It's going to be nice to hit that week in September when all of a sudden I can just be like, here's 150 things I worked on. Like, literally, here's like 150 things. Like, it's going to be pretty sweet to just do that and be like, oh, finally. Finally, I can show all of this shit. Well, anyway, I'm going to call this paintover done. There's more I could do to it in terms of fleshing out the shadows and the forms and like the pants and stuff, but for what you were going for and for what I wanted to talk about in this piece, it's pretty much where I wanted to take it. So I'm going to flatten these down. So I'll get in here. Basically just refining the stuff you had, pushing a few things, playing with the lighting a bit more, but yeah. So I'll be on here tomorrow. I want to say tomorrow morning, but don't quote me. If my throat's bad, I won't be here. But again, if you're part of Art Camp, just check the crit section. I'm going to be posting before I go live with the time. Like, hey, it's 7 a.m. EST, for example. I'm going live in 5 minutes. And I'll post it in the hip chat for Art Camp as well. And tomorrow I'm going to be talking about probably this piece, maybe this piece. And then I'll do a second stream later in the evening. But yeah, anyway, this will be on YouTube and posted in the forum. Thanks for your questions. Thanks for coming. Hopefully my voice will get better soon so I can have a bit more comfort when talking to you. But yeah. So have a good night, everybody. Thanks for coming. Sorry again for getting sick. I will earn your love back. I swear to God. Good night.